Part 1. The tariff tornado touches down. Remember when Trump decided to slap tariffs on, well, pretty much everything? Yeah, good times. It was like a one-man trade war, fueled by Twitter rants and a healthy disregard for global economic stability. The year was 2018, and the world held its breath as the US imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods from China, the European Union, Mexico, and Canada. It was a bold move, some might even say reckless. But hey, who doesn't love a little economic uncertainty with their morning coffee? Part 2, and the dollar goes up? Now you'd think that starting a trade war with half the planet wouldn't exactly be great for the US dollar, right? Well, you'd be wrong. In a move that surprised pretty much everyone, including, I suspect, Trump himself, the dollar surged. It was like the financial markets were playing a game of economic chicken, and the dollar just won by default. But why? Why would the dollar get stronger when the US was essentially picking a fight with its biggest trading partners? Well, it all comes down to something called safe haven demand. Part 3. Economists weigh in. Spoiler, most aren't thrilled. Okay, so remember those economists I mentioned earlier? The ones who probably saw this whole thing coming? Well, they weren't exactly throwing a ticker tape parade for Trump's trade policies. Most economists agreed that while the dollar's surge might look good on paper, it was actually a sign of global economic anxiety. You see, when investors get nervous, they tend to flock to safe havens like the US dollar. It's like the economic equivalent of hiding under the covers with a flashlight during a thunderstorm. Part 4. Short-term wins, long-term losses. So the dollar was up, but at what cost? The immediate reaction might be to celebrate a stronger currency. After all, it signifies economic strength and can make foreign travel and imported goods cheaper for consumers. But this seemingly positive development comes with a hidden price tag. Sure, a strong dollar sounds great. Who doesn't love a good bargain on imported goods? Consumers can enjoy lower prices on electronics, clothing, and other products from abroad. However, this consumer benefit is just one side of the coin. But it also makes US exports more expensive, which isn't exactly ideal for businesses trying to sell their products overseas. American manufacturers find it harder to compete in the global market, as their goods become pricier for foreign buyers. This can lead to reduced sales and even job losses in export-driven industries. It's like trying to win a game of economic tug-of-war by sitting on your end of the rope. While one side might feel victorious in the short term, the overall balance is disrupted, leading to potential long-term consequences that are far from beneficial. In the short term, the strong dollar might have seemed like a win for some, especially for those enjoying cheaper imports and vacations abroad. Financial markets might react positively, and certain sectors could see a temporary boost. But in the long run, it threatened to undermine the very industries Trump was claiming to protect with his tariffs. Manufacturing plants could face closures, and workers might find themselves out of jobs. The ripple effects could be felt across the economy, from reduced industrial output to lower GDP growth. It was a classic case of short-term gains potentially leading to long-term pain. The initial euphoria of a strong dollar could quickly fade as the broader economic implications set in. Balancing short-term wins with long-term stability is a delicate act, and in this case the scales seem tipped towards future challenges. Part 5. Investors, a mixed bag of yays and nays. So how did investors react to all this economic chaos? The reactions were as varied as the investors themselves. Some were glued to their screens, watching every tick of the stock market data, while others were on the trading floor, reacting in real time to the latest market news. Well, it was a real mixed bag. Emotions ran high and the atmosphere was charged with uncertainty. You could see it in their faces. Some were hopeful, others were anxious, and a few were downright bewildered. Some, like those who had piled into US dollar-denominated assets, were probably popping champagne. They saw the tariffs as a boon, a chance to capitalize on the shifting economic landscape. Others, particularly those with exposure to emerging markets, were probably reaching for the antacids. The uncertainty and volatility were taking a toll, and the stress was palpable. The truth is, the impact of Trump's tariffs on investors was about as predictable as the outcome of a game of pin the tail on the donkey after a few too many margaritas. It was a gamble, and everyone knew it. It was messy, confusing, and nobody really knew what was going on. Papers were strewn across desks, and the air was thick with tension. Investors were left to navigate this new reality, each trying to make sense of the chaos in their own way. Part 6. The unpredictable nature of it all. And that, my friends, is the thing about economics. It's a field that is as fascinating as it is frustrating. You see, while we can make educated guesses and informed predictions, the truth is, we are often at the mercy of countless variables. It's not an exact science, unlike physics or chemistry where laws and formulas can predict outcomes with a high degree of certainty. Economics is more fluid. It's influenced by human behavior, political decisions, and even natural disasters. It's more like a giant game of economic Jenga, where each block represents a different factor: interest rates, trade policies, consumer confidence, and so on. One wrong move, one unexpected event, can send the whole thing crashing down. And the ripple effects can be felt across the globe, affecting everything from job markets to international trade. And when you've got someone like Trump who seems to relish in unpredictability at the helm, it adds another layer of complexity. His policies, tweets, and decisions can send shockwaves through the markets. Well, let's just say it makes for a very interesting game. The tariffs, the dollar surge, the economists' warnings, the investors' reactions, each one is a piece of the puzzle. And each piece can change the entire picture. It was all part of a complex and ever-changing economic ecosystem. One where every action has a reaction, and every decision has consequences, both seen and unseen. And trying to predict the long-term consequences of it all is a daunting task. It's like trying to predict the weather in a hurricane, where conditions are constantly changing and new variables are always emerging. In the end, the only certainty in economics is uncertainty. And that, perhaps, is what makes it so endlessly fascinating. Part 7. So what now? Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. So, where do we go from here? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The truth is, nobody knows for sure. The global economy is still grappling with the fallout from Trump's trade wars, and the long-term impact remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be interesting. So buckle up, hold on tight, and get ready for the ride. Because when it comes to the global economy, one thing's for certain, it's never dull or predictable.